Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us from all over the world. We are here to learn more about 5 steps to localization and automation, basically how you can save time, cut cost, and scale, all with no code. Our host today, we are with Alex, who is product manager here at Lokalise. He has been speaking with lots of customers and users of Localized analytics and understanding the main problems, scenarios that you face daily. And we also have Kevin O'Donnell. He's CEO at Global 10X, and he helps companies in international expansion. He advises them on their strategy to go global. Why we are here? Well, sometimes we have lots of data, but we get lost in the localization data maze. So we are here to define which metrics really matter and how we can track them, improve them, and finally prove the impact of the localization work we all do. So first, we want to start by asking you, how do you track your localization data right now? Are some of you using spreadsheets? I know some of you might be using the magic ball. Or maybe some of you already started with localized analytics, which I see, that's great. Good, very mixed audience, almost 20% of people using the magic ball. I think you will find this webinar very interesting. Great, so let's move forward. We want to get real. So data means nothing if we don't know how to apply it, in which scenarios it becomes relevant. So here with me is Alex, who will uncover the real scenarios with data, where data makes it real and relevant. So please, Alex, the floor is yours.
Hello. Today, me and Kevin will share 3 scenarios where we see a very good fit of localized analytics into some most common problems we observe. Often people reach out to product when there is some problem and we need to change something. And consider this example. There is a game company, they have multiple studios and they have more games launched. And for the last 2 years, it was the same number of games, but there were more languages, more content types, more content inside both the game itself and around the game, like knowledge bases, frequent questions, all those kind of things. But they were operating in the same budget with the same headcount in these last 2 years without any new games. How can they communicate that even though number of games or products in the portfolio is the same, amount of work is different? And that's what we believe could be answered with a localization report. Localization report helps with 3 main challenges. The first one is about budgeting. So how do we say that for the next year, we may need more budget? And in a way that we kind of don't overcommit, and we don't say, and we don't inflate budget, but at the same time, we account for all this like random campaigns in fall which were not planned before, but now we have to support in localization. Or when we're trying to communicate about how the volume of transactions is changing, we often feel that we have more pressure, deadlines are tighter, we have more incoming requests. But sometimes this emotional feeling is hard to communicate without actually showing up the hard data. And the invoices from vendors or spreadsheet, they often disconnected, so they don't show the full picture, which makes it harder to communicate. And the last piece of the challenge is when we are seeing what's going on with AI, with machine translations and all that kind of stuff, can we do more using the same budget and same headcount? Or maybe we should secure more budget to use AI and actually translate something we didn't even dare before to translate. And without seeing how it was going for us before, it's often hard to communicate what we plan to optimize, what we plan to come next. And Kevin, how does localization reports help with this kind of challenges?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I love this question because it's so important for every localization team, no matter what size you are, what maturity level you're at. The way I think about it is if you want to be more business focused and think about the impact of your localization on the business, you have to start with creating a localization source of truth. So your dashboard should be the one place to understand everything that's happening in your localization operations. And that matters so much when you're communicating upwards, communicating with stakeholders, with senior leadership. It gives you that credibility. It allows you the room to scale your operations and gives you one place to observe everything that's happening. Think about if you're meeting with stakeholders across the business and you can review project by project what's happening within their very project, what the efficiencies are, what the delays might be, what the bottlenecks might be. It is essential if you can come to that meeting and be highly credible and show what's happening in rich data. I always encourage teams to find any opportunity to share this in highly relatable forms. So put it in your newsletters, put it in your business reviews, put it in your QBRs. Any place you can bring this data is so helpful. In terms of what to track, I always start with the simple metrics. Think about source updates. Think about the impact of source changes, whether they're coming from code or content updates or something else, and what that means for your operations. Think about the time spent on tasks because this often gets lost. Localization teams can be superheroes at just getting stuff done and delivering with minimal resources, but those hidden time sinks really matter in terms of making improvements. And then think about the historical trends. So what projects tend to run late? What projects tend to have a glut of changes near the end? And you might want to think about changing that. I worked with a marketing team recently, a marketing localization team, and they were very efficient, but they tended to be very ad hoc. They got their localization requests quite late. There were a lot of late breaking changes that required a lot of churn, and they were just getting burnt out. They were finding it really difficult to get included into strategic planning or upfront decisions. And what we decided to do was we changed the nature of their communication entirely. So instead of reporting how many words they translated last quarter or last year, or what their cost per word was, they started talking about time to market. They started talking about priority of projects and where to allocate budget and which localization methods were most advantageous for the project. And by shifting this focus and by having a couple of dashboards that were really demonstrating business impact, they were able to get that seat at the table. They were taken more seriously. Their insights were being showed up in company all hands and business reviews, and they were getting that influence that they needed with senior marketing leadership. So that helped shift away from being more of a transactional partner to a strategic partner. And that all started by having this central source of truth dashboard to show these insights.
And about how to actually start it, right? This is where Localized can jump in. So first, about historical trends. With analytics, you have up to 3 years of history. So you can observe the seasonality, the spikes, or what it meant to do that launch you remember as it was tricky. So you can map events you remember to specific volumes. So you can predict similar launches, how much volume there would be, how much time there would be, and so on. So the historical trends is first. But when you're looking at historical trends, what often slips through cracks is that the new content is people are conscious about it. The user created a new blog post, new feature, something like this. What often slips through crack are iterations on something existing. In this case, I'm showing the customer had almost the same amount of content which was coming from iteration on existing features, which wasn't getting much attention, much awareness in the organization. But for the localization team, it was about the same volume. So bringing this into attention and sharing this in town halls or around helps to communicate that the real amount of volume we have. And the next one is time spent on task. We heard multiple times people were using the averages. On average, it takes us this amount of time to finish translation, finish review, or something like that. What instead we suggest is to use not average, but 80th percentile, which means in 80% of cases, task will be finished in this time. So for example, for this customer, their average was 20 days, and it was often felt they are late. It always felt like this pressure of deadlines. But when they look at 80th percentile, they will see that they actually need at least one more week and set the expectations that they really need a month. Still, months is a lot, but at least it will be a realistic expectation. At the same time, you cannot use the longest possible time, because for this specific customer, it was about 3 months, which is unreasonable to even communicate, right? It's outliers. So in analytics, we try to give you the tools to set the realistic expectations and to build the location report of what was happening before, and so you can bridge past insights into your planning sessions and set proper expectations. The next part which Kevin mentioned was cases of what is the most advantageous methods to use in translation. This is where business case and decisions about changing them often come in a business case form. Here's an example of one of location managers sharing with us. They have a user analytics platform, and they do in-house reviews. And their colleagues who are doing in-house reviews into German and into French, they were complaining that they're doing kind of stupid changes, and they're wasting their time just doing really trivial changes. So the question the local manager had, like, okay, so what should we do about this? What method should we use? They were using Google or Depot. They were using traditional machine translation. And they were asking themselves, so what do we do about this? And this kind of challenges often comes in 3 forms. The first is about choosing the best method that will fit the purpose, because you cannot use one for all. Often you need to select where you would employ people, where you would employ machines, and in what combinations of all of these topics. And also, when we do it, is that how do we find the cases? Should we use knowledge base with AI? Should we use real-time translations like in localized messages with something else, and so on and so forth? So choosing the perfect fit often should be informed. That's how you get a little bit more credibility, like Kevin said, or at least you feel more in control. You stop guessing, but you understand what should be done. And the last part which is what we observe in the questions that come to us, is about the editing. Can we drop the editing and just do AI? This kind of question is worrisome. Like, can we do this, or should we, or maybe it's too risky? What do we do about this? And Kevin, how does this business cases help us answer this question?
Yeah, it's such a timely topic, Alex. And the central way to think about this is to make an informed choice around your translation method. You're absolutely right. There is no one size fits all, and there should not be. And so often a CEO or a senior leader will say, why don't we just put everything through ChatGPT? Why don't we just use AI translation for everything? And it's a surprisingly difficult question to answer, actually, because technically you can do that. You can do that technically. If you spend a bit of money, you can get it all done. The real question is, what is the impact if we do this, and where is it appropriate? And that's a hard question to answer, because nobody knows straight away when it fits and when it doesn't fit. It's all about balancing that speed, cost, and quality, like you mentioned. So the first step is really to move away from the subjective, to stop this being opinion-based and move to data, have benchmarks and have targets. And starting with something like Localized Analytics will give you the means to monitor this over time. Instead of somebody's opinion saying, well, I think AI localization should come first, you can look at the data and you can make data-informed decisions. Now, introducing new translation methods is rarely done lightly because it can have a profound impact on quality. And so you need to be very careful, of course. However, by introducing it carefully, by testing it across different projects and across different languages, you can then identify where is it a good fit? Where should we go for pure human translation? Maybe a blend of MT plus post editing, maybe pure AI translation, or something different, some other combination. Many companies will use a variety of MT engines and different tunings. And by having one dashboard to track the impact, you'll be able to identify which is most appropriate here. And the results will probably vary across languages, projects, and certainly content types. I worked with a company recently, and they were under severe pressure from leadership to do this, to slash their translation budget and to introduce pure AI translation for everything. The CEO was on a buzz to bring AI everywhere, and there was a big dilemma from the localization team. They didn't want to push back entirely. They didn't want to be seen as resistant to change. But at the end of the day, they were accountable for quality, and they needed to make sure that the quality of the localization was going to be fit for the business purpose and was going to be good enough to make sure that the brand recognition and brand awareness would be maintained. So what they decided to do is they said, yes, we will adopt AI translation, but we'll do it based on where the data allows us to do it. So they did some testing, and they identified that AI translation was perfect for developer documentation. It was perfect for support. Very few changes were needed in post-editing by running it there. It was not perfect for marketing. For some of the highest profile pieces, extensive changes were needed, and there was very little savings to be gained because they were using a generic engine. It wasn't well tuned. So by having this data, it took a long time to compile it, but by having this data, they were able to build a business case to say, we are embracing AI translation in these cases. Over here, we are not yet. We have more work to do. We're going to proceed with this type of localization, and then we will spend time tuning the engine, improving the context, and testing it again. But they had this one dashboard to return to where they could demonstrate improvements over time and keep iterating and refining and have something to return to and improve. So that was the key point.
And having this dashboard is where Localized Analytics kicks in. And here's an example similar to what Kevin was sharing. The customer, they had this dashboard filtered to a knowledge base. So they were using machine translation as their primary source of as a primary translation method. You can see it here. And then in September, again, similar pressure like Kevin described, they decided to try out what's going on with AI, whether it will be helpful or not, how it will impact. And you see, before they had about 20%, sometimes more of the edit rate for the AI. When they were building the case, what they found is that initially in September, while there was a lot of attention, a bit of resistance from multiple parties, they had quite a bit of edit rates, which was almost 40% was edited. And they found that the generic model didn't work well enough. So after fine-tuning and improving the model, providing more context in Localize, you can provide context within tasks, within key descriptions, and having this context inside Localize and shipping it to AI improved things dramatically for them. So they could reduce the editing rate to 6%. And edit rate is meaning that before 1 in 5 keys have to be touched by a reviewer. Now only 6% of them has to be touched, which was dramatic speed up, and the customer support team freed up quite a bit of time. And this case was successful to start. And from there, they were like carefully expanding adoption of AI. But again, they build an image that they're doing informed decisions. They are following the trends and not just jumping ahead. And there were no dramatic errors or problems to the customer, to the brand or to the image of the company. And having this data and doing the edits in Localize, it's just enabled. You don't need to set up everything specifically. You just do edits, and that's enough. You don't need to do specific configuration or getting out of your way, out of usual ways of working. And that's how you build and inform decisions about translation methods. The last part, the last scenario we want to cover today is when we still need humans. How do we communicate that we need to do some improvements without causing conflicts or sounding too aggressive, but being constructive and actually leading a change? Here's an example. A company in the e-commerce space, they had challenges with some of the language pairs, which were not systematic, but they had worrisome delays quite often in the last couple of months, and they were wondering how can they package their message to articulate the potential risk, the red flag. And these kind of questions often come in three different from three different sides. The one is about setting expectations of, can we trust that this piece or this campaign will be translated by this time? Can we trust vendors' service levels agreements? And we need to know how it was before to build this trust. And the next one is about the languages. Are our tier 1 languages being on time? Are our tier 2 languages being on time? And so on. And if we are not on time, is this a language-specific issue? Maybe one specific language is taking longer? Or sometimes the same tasks, on average, they don't take long, but there are outliers which are suspiciously common. At the same time, they are not bounded to specific language, to specific campaign, and we want to investigate what's going on, and we want to work together with a vendor. And Kevin, how do we work together with vendor instead of trying to be, instead of getting into a conflict?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. I think the best way to build a successful partnership with your vendor is to have transparent goals and to drive for a collaborative relationship. This really starts with having again, going back to having one source of truth that you can stand over and you can maintain, rather than relying on your vendor to bring that data and to show you once a month or once a quarter what the throughput is and what type of work you've been doing. If you're in control of that, then you can set the agenda in the partnership, and you can particularly set the agenda in a QBR. And I always advise localization teams, you should be deciding what you want to talk about and cover in a QBR, not your vendor. It's your relationship to manage and to own. And you need to identify projects that are not running effectively or languages that might be running slow, and then use the QBR to dive into that in greater detail to understand what's behind the delay. Are they missing some context? Is there a resourcing issue? Was there an inefficiency in how we delivered it? By having the data ready, you can bring this to your vendor and have that productive discussion. I also think it's key to have shared goals that you can track over time. These goals might be around quality, turnaround time, use of different translation methods, introduction of new technology, or something different. But by having these clear goals and tracking it, and then having the data to monitor it over time and understand those trends, it effectively keeps everybody honest and avoids surprises for either party, either the vendor bringing you some data that you didn't expect, or the same for you, bringing your vendor something unexpected. So it helps drive a very fair relationship over time, and can really improve performance. In terms of operational excellence for localization teams are brilliant at continuous improvement, but this really only works well when they're monitoring it in real time and they identify the projects and languages where there are blockages or delays happening, and you can investigate rather than waiting for somebody to complain or somebody to notice at the end of a project something hasn't been delivered. If you can proactively see that and step in, you can avoid this type of problem. I always think with continuous improvement, it's only as good as the relationship with your vendors, because it is such a dependent partnership there. You have to rely on them to depend on you, particularly when you're up against deadlines. And this is all in aid of going from ad hoc to more planned type of localization. To give an example, I worked at Microsoft previously, and we had 3 localization vendors at the time. We had over 100 languages. There was a lot to juggle. And we used our QBRs not for transactional matters to see what's happening this week on this project, but to look at our long-term goals. So we created a dashboard where we would look at turnaround time, quality targets, translation methods used, and we were able to then discuss some languages where there was a dip in quality, or some other projects where there was a delay and maybe some quality gaps. And then we'd focus on why that was the case, what we needed to do to improve, and what the vendor needed to do to improve. And it became more of a troubleshooting, collaborative session, which really turned into a productive, very long-term, enduring partnership, which was wonderful for everybody. So by having this quarter over quarter continuous improvement that's backed by data, you can invest in your vendor partnership and move towards this strategic way of working.
Now I cannot hold myself to say that with Localize you can get yourself to be as Microsoft. And how do you do it, right? So the main part is about this chart. We have multiple charts, but I want to focus for this conversation on this chart. So to be fair with a vendor, you can see that in this specific case, a customer was working on improving the time to close, and you just need to glance once on the chart to see the improvement. Before there were like a lot of outliers which took almost a year to be closed. Some tasks were forgotten, some tasks were never translated actually and lost, so they had complaints or customer support requests. Some tasks were never picked up even by the vendor and so on because of some integration problems. All of these things were resolved. It took a year, but they went from feeling unpredictable, being unpredictable, not feeling comfortable, not trusting each other, into something that they can agree on and improve. Still, it's 50 days. There is room of improvement, but starting there and working together, and again, even if when working with vendor, it's important to be fair, right? So sometimes there will be only one outlier, which could be painful and dramatic and so on. But if it's only one outlier, you can still frame conversations in a way that it's one outlier. So instead of pressuring vendor and getting them in defensive mode, you get a little bit more collaborative, a little bit more on we are together working to improve it. And when you have such outliers, the way you do it, each of them inside Localize, each of them has a details. So you just hover over it, and you will see a details about what is the task, what language it was, how much words there were, and so on. So in this case, for example, it was 28 words that were lost because of some integration between vendor or some vendor system problem. So this task was lost. And then now you can bring this specific task ID and get something tangible and share something tangible with vendor and agree that we are working on solving this specific problem this time. And doing this each quarter or each month, if it's something, or each week, will improve things tremendously. And in a year, in a half a year, in a year, you will not recognize how well operations are running. And Kevin, we covered 3 scenarios. Can you summarize it for us, please? So later we can go to questions, but like having a recap in mind.
Absolutely. So first place to begin is always create your source of truth for localization. It is so essential for localization teams to have one place to track what's happening and to be in control and to gain those insights and to be in control of your own messaging for your own internal team, for your internal stakeholders and leadership, and for your external vendors. Secondly, you need to understand the impact of translation methods, turnaround time, and quality, and understand the interplay between these. Have the have the control to affect each lever and understand what happens to different projects and languages when you do change any of these factors, and then monitor trends over time. And then thirdly, drive continuous improvement, which all localization teams tend to do, but most importantly, drive them through localization insights. So being able to direct your focus towards where the priority is and where the business impact it has its maximum potential, that's what's key. So instead of taking a peanut butter approach and improving every single localization project and task, focus on where you can have the biggest impact, track it over time, and then use your central source of truth to celebrate your wins and to share it and to continue in that vein.
You. Now, my favorite part, the questions.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Alex. It was great hearing all the scenarios and connecting data to business. Everyone, if you want to reach out to Kevin, I'm putting the webpage of Global 10X in the chat. Now is your time to ask questions. We have a couple of them, but if you want to ask anything to Kevin or Alex, now is the time. You can use the Q&A panel to do it. And I will start with some that we already have. So the first one, I think it can be for Alex. It is, can I filter to a specific brand or subproduct in our portfolio?
Yeah. Yes, in Lokalise, you can filter by project and key. Give me a second, maybe. Okay, yeah, sorry. This is in drafts, but I will share with you. So what do we have? We have filters, and for everybody, for all plants in Lokalise, there are filters by date and language. Now, for enterprise customers, you can dive deeper and do something that Microsoft does. You can dive into specific projects, specific products, and you can use project tags to group your projects as, for example, you can use your project tags to have, let's say, a game, and different types of content will be connected per separate projects. And you can filter out the game overall, specific maybe knowledge base or just quests or whatever. And sometimes for a key tag, you can track even how specific launch, how specific feature was going on. So in Lokalise Analytics, you definitely can do the filters. It's available for enterprise customers. And if you're an enterprise customer, definitely go to your CSM and make sure you get in the most value you can. And if you're not enterprise customers, you know what to do. Upgrade. Maria.
Thank you, Alex. Second question, can I see which one of my internal reviewers is having trouble or being slower so I can ping them?
Yes. Actually, this case is very well covered in this dashboard. So you should be using the tasks, because when you use tasks, you can attribute specific activity of specific person. So when you're using task, and you will see on a chart like this, you will see that there are outliers here. So then you hover over them, and you will see the specific task and specific target language. So you know that this person was doing a German review at this time, and it took unusually long. So just going in this kind of situations to analytics will help you see, like Kevin said, who is impactful to ping. So instead of like going to public or share channels and causing drama about, hey, people, please be on time, you can go in direct messages and say, hey, I would appreciate a lot if you finish it sooner. We're just waiting for your contributions. So that's how you can dive deeper to a specific person and address it effectively and make sure it happens.
Great. Then we have a question, how to measure our UX writing copy in an e-commerce app, for instance. Maybe that's for Kevin?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. There's a few different ways that I would think about this one. First, I would think about the measuring the source updates that happen on the particular UX copy. So track how effective is your writing team and your content team on creating copy that is is it suitable for efficient localization? So are they updating it many times and delivering you several different iterations of it towards the end, and then that's causing you a lot of repeat work or a lot of updated localization work that can be time consuming and very expensive. So by having a close understanding of that source updates, that will give you a lot of information to go back to your writing team with. Secondly, try to understand the impact on different translation methods. So if you put that UX writing through different methods, be it human translation or MT or AI plus review, you can understand what is the level of effort needed to achieve high quality localization from this. So that will give you an understanding of how effective are your style guides for human translators? How well tuned are your MT engines for the context that you need? And depending on the results, you'll be able to either improve the context, improve the preparation for your localization methods, or work with your writing team and improve how effective they are in delivering high quality source content for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Next question. Could Localize provide custom reports where we could provide a translator's rate and it will be compute cost? So we don't need to combine analytics and spreadsheets?
Yes. So in Localize, in the tasks dashboard, you can download all of the tasks in a very detailed manner for each task and specific language, specific person, how much this person did, what part of a task this specific person did, and so on. So you can download, and then once you have all the languages and stuff, you will have to just multiply it by the person's rate to see what is the monthly cost and so on. So this is the best way to address the costs inside inside Localize and using analytics.
Okay, thank you, Alex. To monitor my own work, do I have to create tasks for myself? Kind of a fly solo third-party translator asking the question.
This is interesting. So in analytics, we usually focus only on people who oversee the program. For your own work, you will have tasks, and you can just go in specific project into the tasks dashboard and monitor this like specific tasks and whether they're on time or not. But for analytics specifically, it's focused on seeing the bigger picture. For the solo work, it should be enough to just use the tasks dashboard.
Good, thank you. Next question, analytics will be available in smaller time intervals than monthly?
Yes, and data in analytics is updated every day. So every day, once a day, data is updated, and you can filter it smaller. The only caveat is that the columns you will see, they will be only monthly. So you can still filter out part of the month and see only partial data. It's just will not be automatically divided into weeks or days. So for example, if you know that you run a pilot to build a case this specific week, you can just adjust your filters to use this week. And analytics will show you the data for this week specifically. Even though it will call, for example, March 2025, but the data will be filtered just for this week.
Great, thanks. Next question is, by edit rate, does it literally mean how many critical or necessary changes were done to text? Should we have a baseline of work on, if so, for example, 5 errors per 1,000 words?
Yes, so there are two questions. I would ask Kevin about the second one, about what is the baseline and what we should expect, but I can address about what is edit rate. Edit rate is totally depends on what your reviewer decided to change. So it may be necessary, and it all depends on how aligned you are with reviewer on what should be changed. What we observed though is that if we tell people that you are reviewing AI or you're reviewing machine translation, they tend to fix more content, to edit more than they edit against people, because there is a little bit of prejudice against AI or machine translation. So edit rate shows all edits, and it's up to you to align with the reviewer and make sure that only necessary changes are made. And Kevin, can you share us with an insight about like what is a baseline? What should we expect as a good one?
I'm going to push back on that a little bit because I don't think I think it's such a highly subjective topic that I don't think any one number is the right answer here. Rather, I think you need to decide for your localization project, and more importantly, for your content type, what is the right baseline here. So what's far more important than coming up with one number, whether it's 5 errors or 10 errors or 2 errors per 1,000 words, actually make a determination across different projects. What is your expectation of quality and what is your expectation that you are prepared to live with? And that is going to change whether you're producing developer documentation that is not selling your project. It is not trying to convert people. It's informing them of information, and it has to be accurate and understandable, but doesn't need to be perfect. Or legal documentation that probably does need to be perfect, and you want to be very careful there. Or medical translations. So understanding the nature of the content and what you're prepared to live with is far more important, and that's why one simple baseline is not effective. You need to tune your baseline and tune your expectation based on the project, based on the importance of the language, and based on the job it's doing for you.
Awesome, thank you. And last question that we have is, what is the other translation method that we can see in analytics?
Yes, in Lokalise, there are some technical things you can do with the content. For example, if you apply pseudo-localization, if you copy a project, if you restore a project from a snapshot, if you copy source to target, all of these changes Lokalise will still track, but it's not real translations per se. So in this case, we still show to you, so you can see what was going on with the content, but we will group it into the other, so you will be aware, but you will know that it's technical changes that don't necessarily need your attention.
Awesome, thank you. So those were all the questions. I just want to say that we also created a template of a report to report on your localization metrics. You will receive that after the webinar, so you can just start using analytics to report and show to stakeholders the power and the impact of localization. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Kevin and Alex, for joining us in this session, and thank you, everybody, for being with us today, and we keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.